Alive through these lines I write, I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
It's 2016, and the biggest political issue in the United States is a football player not standing up for the national anthem. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio, once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. I'm really happy to be back tonight to talk about this craziness going on in the news, or maybe the lack thereof, the polarization, the division, the just completely degradation of the political conversation. I mean, so many ways to slice this. We've got a awesome panel put together tonight to talk about this really, really apparently important issue of people not standing up for the Pledge of Allegiance. And then it also goes back to this theme of that Olympian that didn't put her hand over the heart. I don't know if that was I think it was for the national anthem as well. It may have been the Pledge of Allegiance or something stupid. Like I don't know. But we're going to talk about this. I mean, so many different angles to go with this. First, let me introduce my panel because we've got a good one tonight. We're not going to be taking any phone calls at this time. I'll let you guys know later on if we do. I don't know how long our guests are going to be able to stay on the line with us, but I'll announce the phone number and all that stuff later on once we get through some of this stuff. First, my longtime co-host is joining us, DB Schwartz. What's up, DB?
Not a lot, Nick. Just happy to see the brainwashed masses falling for another ploy over a flag.
Oh, yeah, they love that flag, don't they? It's more important than principle. It's more important than peace. It's more important than honesty and, you know, obviously at Trump's corruption and all that stuff.
Well, don't you know, Nick, that people died for the freedom me and you no longer have?
Yeah, apparently. You know, we gotta support those people that, you know, who we're honoring with the national anthem, which, you know, I wasn't aware that was a song that was in honor of active duty military. That's news to me. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess we're not honoring people that died for, you know, other reasons besides, you know, defending our freedom. There hasn't been a war since World War II that you could really argue was defending our freedom. I mean, all the wars all the recent wars have been for other reasons. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole right now, but, you know, maybe we can get into that discussion later. Let me introduce the rest of our panel. We've got the amazing journalist and editor-in-chief of the Underground Reporter, Claire Bernish, on the line. What's up, Claire?
Howdy.
I heard you were doing a lot of driving today.
16 hours, yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and that gave me plenty of time to hear what all of the crazy right-wing radio commentators have to say about this whole national anthem, Pledge of Allegiance situation, which has been a study in frustration not to be able to respond to them while driving, I have to say.
Well, you're going to be working on a response hopefully tomorrow, right?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, I'll give you a chance to talk about that. Give us a little preview, but first I want to introduce our special guest, Ryan Butcher, who does a lot of the meme work for the Anti-Media. He also runs a page today that had a bunch of viral memes regarding this whole Colin Kaepernick situation over on MT News. What's up, Ryan? Ryan, I think you're muted unless you're not with us here. I'm not sure.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? Sorry, I forgot to hit the button there.
Oh, it's all good. Thanks for muting up, man. That's really important because otherwise we hear a bunch of background noise and stuff.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, dude, that's pretty crazy news. I mean, the world seems like it's going to hell in a handbasket, and everybody's just more concerned about the wedge issues going on here in the States, stuff that really doesn't even matter.
Exactly. So we've got our top story of the weekend. It came out yesterday, but it's titled 6 stories more infuriating than a football player not standing up during a song. We're going to talk about that after we get Claire's little preview, because Claire's not going to be able to be with us for too long. Like she said, she'd been driving 16 hours today, so I know you're tired. I don't want to keep you on for a whole hour. Tell us a little bit about what you make of this scenario and your analysis of what's going on with this outrage over Colin Kaepernick not honoring the national anthem.
Well, considering how inculcated the entire society is with this whole crazy patriotic nationalist, sentiment, it's not surprising that people are outraged over this. But at the same time, it's so blown out of proportion and so analyzed. I literally listened all day long to people analyzing this particular situation, and it makes no sense to me that it is this much of an outrage. I mean, beyond just the fact that he is standing up for something that actually he has a laudable reason to not stand up for the national anthem, to not participate in something that he feels, he's saying, as long as the country still oppresses black people, people of color, as long as police brutality exists and police can act with impunity, I mean, it makes sense. His stance makes sense. And beyond that, even if you don't necessarily agree with him, his right to not do that really kind of supersedes everything else. Even though the NFL is a private organization, still, his right supersedes all of that other kind of crap argument on the side. So everybody is analyzing, like, are black people really oppressed by police, and is this going on? And I mean, these commentators even went into, I heard he might be Islamic, and I mean, it's like, I can't believe the argument has gotten this bad. It's a simple stance. People should say, if they really are standing up for freedom and if they are really patriotic, they should say, well, by all means, he is doing what we are supposed to do under our Constitution. It is his constitutional right to stand up however he sees fit, for whatever stance he feels that he needs to. This is what freedom is about. This is what our country is about. And instead, they're picking him apart. It's like they missed the point entirely. Exactly.
The entire argument here coming from the people that are outraged about Colin Kaepernick, it's so hypocritical because, on one hand, it's like, look, the national anthem is celebrating all these freedom fighters that died for your freedom, but, your freedom ends where I tell you what to do. It's like, you have freedom in this country as long as it doesn't get in my own emotional way. As long as it doesn't affect my beliefs. It's like, you guys need to slap yourselves upside the head if you think that this guy doesn't have the right to stand up or in this instance, not stand up for the national anthem, because literally that's kind of the whole point of having some semblance of freedom left, is that you can do these kind of, subtle protests and not have the government's gun put down your throat and say, stand the fuck up and, salute the flag. Ryan, I saw a interesting meme today from one of your pages that talked about, if you don't like people not being able to stand up, not being able to salute the flag. Why not? Why don't you move to a country where flag saluting is mandatory? Like, I guess in North Korea or something like that.
Yeah, dude, that was one of John's memes. That one did really good. Yeah, but it's true. It's like what Kaepernick did. It was totally American, but it was perceived as un-American, and I think that the mainstream media kind of spun it that direction to kind of get people ramped up and at each other's throats over something ridiculously stupid,
Yeah, and you know what? This is a textbook media frenzy, right? It's something, and I wrote an article about this just last week regarding what's going on in North Dakota with the Native Americans shutting down the construction of the oil pipeline and, the really, really valiant stand they're making up there. And it's historic. It's like the most tribes coming together for a cause in like a really long time, if not ever. But yet this isn't really a media narrative that can be run with because it's not super polarizing like this Colin Kaepernick story is. The Colin Kaepernick thing, it's like, it's the perfect polarizing story. And Claire, I want to get your opinion on this because, I kind of, coming from my perspective, it's like the media likes to run with these Kaepernick type stories because it's really easy to draw a line down the middle and say, okay, half of you people are going to agree with this guy and the other half of you are going to disagree. And now you guys go fight and, let the media coverage just go crazy on this. Meanwhile, on the other hand, some quietly some corruption or something else is probably happening right now that we're not aware of. Claire, what do you think about this media frenzy that's now taking place?
Like I said, I think it entirely misses the point. This is very divisive. Obviously, he is, not taking a stand for something that means a great deal, and it's an already divisive topic that he's doing it for. But instead of actually kind of analyzing why it is that he did this, the issue of police brutality and impunity, instead of examining that, although I will have to say some of the conservative outlets examine that I won't even get into it, but instead of examining like what it was that he was standing up for and saying like, wow, that's his patriotic right to do that, and that's exactly what our soldiers have defended, supposedly. Nobody caught that. Like, it seems as if the entire mainstream media and conservative talk shows and everybody kind of missed the point entirely. Like, we are supposed to, America at its core, at least the supposed ideal, is about all of us having the right to protest how we want to speak freely how we want to stand up for the freedoms that we are supposedly all about. And, it's kind of ironic that everybody comes down hard on him and calls him, un-American and all this other stuff. It's almost a commentary on where we are as a society and how far we've strayed from the supposed rights that we were founded on. It just kind of speaks to how censored and divisive and just incredibly, it's as if everybody misses the point anymore. They have all these ideals, but they're not based on anything that we're supposed to be about, like constitutional rights to freedom of speech and expression and all of this. If we're not standing up for those things, then what are we about? And apparently, it's all about the flag. I would say the same thing about flag burning. And people miss the point on, flag burning. They're like, oh, he's so un-American. It's like, no, that's the heart of Americanism, supposedly.
Exactly. And so this brings up a different conversation here because, recently a lot has been made, a big fuss has been made about quote-unquote social justice warriors and how they've taken, political correctness a step too far to the point where they're kind of curtailing free speech by being overly politically correct. Now, don't get me wrong. I think social justice warriors, in some aspects, are doing good work, trying to combat racism and trying to right wrongs that are done at a social level. But on the other hand, I'm definitely in agreement that many social justice organizations, movements, NGOs, media outlets, etc., have gone overboard with their political correctness to the point where they're abridging freedom of speech.
I need to say something on that point, actually. I just wrote an article recently about there is a university out there that actually has made it unacceptable to use the term political correctness to criticize political correctness. That's how bad that has gotten.
Yeah, it's just getting so ridiculous and meticulous that it's just getting so going so far overboard. Now, here's the funny thing that's kind of hypocritical about this argument about Kaepernick is that a lot of the people are like, these real hardcore Trump type like nationalists that are like, they're against, social justice warriors. They're against political correctness. They're against like quote unquote safe spaces and all this kind of crap. But now we've got what I've seen termed today, the opposite of a social justice warrior in the United States is now a cultural justice warrior, which are like these, make America great again type Trump type nationalists that are now offended by people going against American cultural norms, and to the point where they're trying to be politically correct, overly politically correct, by trying to force Colin Kaepernick to stand up for the, whatever it's called, the Pledge of Allegiance. The national anthem. There you go. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, this is just, it just makes no sense. It's just such a frivolous argument.
It's an obfuscation of the fact of free speech and free expression. If we were really a free society, these arguments on both sides would not exist at all, because it would be completely acceptable for people to disagree vehemently on both sides, but still accept the fact that each party would be able to say whatever it is that they want to about anything without saying like, well, they should never have said that. They should never have said that. This is the heart of free speech. It's the ability to voice dissenting opinions, things that you don't agree with, and you have to defend those too. You have to defend the people that you disagree with. You have to defend people's right to say something racist or bigoted or something that's like really culturally inappropriate or whatever. You have to defend those rights, or the right for freedom of any sort of expression goes away for everyone. And I think everybody is missing that point.
Exactly. Now, Claire, I know you're on limited time here, so I got two more questions for you. First of all, in my article that I wrote last week about how there's a kind of a mainstream media blackout on what's going on in North Dakota with the Native Americans standing up to this pipeline, I made a point about how the media kind of purposely runs with these divisive topics. And I went as far as speculating as to whether or not they're doing it on purpose to create a divided populace. And of course, this Colin Kaepernick issue is extremely divisive and polarizing. Again, the media is running with this story over top of pretty much every other story out there, including maybe conveniently what went on with Hillary Clinton, the most recent AP report that shows she was basically selling influence through the State Department, through the Clinton Foundation and all that. This comes at like a pretty convenient time. I don't want to say it's, made up just to cover for that or anything, but it is convenient. Do you think the media purposely runs with these type of narratives for the purpose of dividing the country?
I would have to say absolutely. And actually, this has been proven time and again, oddly enough, when I'm on the road and traveling for hours and hours on end and listen to how these narratives play out on radio media. They literally will pick apart every single possible detail of something to make it further and further divisive, to make it more and more inflammatory, to take an issue that really should be something very basic that has to do with basic rights, basic freedoms, no matter what stance it is, and they take it apart to death to make everybody kind of just want to deck each other. The people who call in who are in opposition get torn apart. The people who support it get propped up. This is ridiculous. It's nothing. This should not be that divisive. We're talking about basic rights that we are supposed to be guaranteed under the Constitution, if not just by human law. There should be no division on this. There could be criticism and discussion and debate about the issues that Kaepernick or anybody else is standing up for. But instead, it becomes this division based on race and based on religion and creed and everything else. It shouldn't be that way. This should not be that divisive of an issue. And I think the mainstream media purposely divides everybody to keep us, I guess, at each other's throats. I would say that the election has a lot to do with that.
I saw a great headline from, I think it was called Black Sports News or something, a website, blacksportsnews.com, and it was like, police union wants Kaepernick to apologize for wanting to stop police brutality. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
So on this topic, To talk about something kind of substantive here, Claire, you had a great article recently on the Free Thought Project regarding actually getting rid of police. And so, while we're on this stupid, superficial argument here, I wanted you to, before you go, just give us a quick rundown about the argument you made there, because I thought it was really compelling.
We have talked at length, all of us. I think much of activism in general has talked about what we can do to solve the issue of police brutality, disregarding entirely the people who say that no such problem exists, because it really does. If we actually abolish police, society will not fall into chaos. I think that is the biggest trepidation that a lot of people have about abolishing police. They're like, no, what the hell are you talking about? But if you actually run down and look at it, there are various cities across the country who have employed these kind of citizen resolution committees and things like that. I mean, there are a number of things that can be done where you don't need police involved. You don't need a state-sponsored agent of force to basically police the citizens and enforce these laws that are so ridiculous in the first place. I mean, people say, well, who would protect us if the police are gone? The fact is the police aren't really protecting us from anything. They're protecting us from all of these nonviolent, completely insubstantive crimes, like collecting rainwater or, keeping chickens in your backyard. We don't need anybody to police us from those things. All they really do is generate revenue for the local government. If we get rid of the police and we get rid of these over-criminalized behaviors in life, we don't need all these laws. We don't need the police to do that. Societies police themselves. It's an historical fact. We don't need any sort of agents of the state to come and, threaten us with violence and intimidation and harassment. We can do that ourselves. The more involved communities are with each other, the less likely they are to be violent with each other and have problems. It's just, I don't know. I think it's a really basic argument, but people have a real problem with it.
Yeah, there's been plenty of philosophical arguments made about why we can do away with the institution of police as we know it. And this topic is so divisive. I've got family members, I won't say who they are, but who I've known for, of course I've known forever, but who I've hung out with a lot. And, driving in the car and it's like, oh shit, there's cops. We got to, chill out, drive straight, don't get us pulled over. And now it's like, oh, well, because in reaction to the Black Lives Matter movement, it's like, oh yeah, I love the cops. I can't believe they're against the cops and stuff. It's like, dude, pull your head out of your ass, man. For the last 10 years, you've been talking shit about the cops, and all of a sudden, it's like, anyway.
It's just, I think that it's important for everybody to know that to really realize police aren't really protecting us from anything. They're not really solving violent crimes or property crimes or crimes of harm in any sort of substantive manner. They're really only solving crimes that are generated by Congress at an increasing rate to generate revenue for localities and for the state and for the federal government. And that's really what it comes down to. Police aren't really doing anything to protect or to serve in any sort of way. They're not supposed to by the Constitution. They're not supposed to by a number of Supreme Court rulings. They're not really doing any of those things. They're not putting their lives on the line for anything of any substance whatsoever. They're doing it for a bunch of code enforcement, and that needs to be really highlighted.
It's law enforcement. It's not peace officers anymore. It's a whole different thing now.
Yes.
It's a whole different philosophy. Claire, thank you for spending some time with us. I know you're tired. We're going to let you go. I'm going to go over to DB and get your reaction to this conversation. DB, what do you make of this, man?
Yeah, it's anybody just needs to look up what police were originally intended for a long time, forever. Basically, as soon as organized commercial slavery took hold in the United States in particular, that's when the police force came out, when they came to reclaim escaped slaves, and they were initially the Pinkerton Agency. And prior to there being a police force, there were city watches, and these are extremely different. One is to create an environment of law and order, protect property, but also protect people from other people, especially wolves of society. These were the original sheepdogs, and like Claire said, their entire operational standard has changed now to where these guys truly do actually shy away from anything that could be dangerous. Therefore, they can't actually prevent crime, and they're there just to create revenue and honestly to pick up the pieces when things fall through, like with murders. I mean, they're not preventing them. They're just basically barely getting any justice. That's what they are now. It's what they've morphed into, and it's what we've allowed, I guess.
Yeah, I saw this hilarious meme about next time you get robbed, you should appreciate when a cop shows up 6 hours later and shrugs his shoulders. Oh man. But yeah, DB, like you said, man, look at what went on. Let's look at two recent events and kind of gauge, and I'll let the audience decide for themselves on this. In Orlando, with the recent Orlando shooting of the gay nightclub, I mean, the cops showed up, and it took them like 3 hours before they finally decided to like try to go in and like do something about what was going on in there. And in fact, they like detonated a bomb on the wall next to the bathroom where they thought the guy was hiding out. Like, they didn't even go in there guns blazing, like ready to take a guy down, and you know, maybe one or two guys takes a bullet as well. You know, and their lack of courage or lack of valor, or maybe it was the operating procedure that was behind the operation over there, ended up allowing, how many was it? Like almost 80 people dying in that nightclub or something like that. It was some ridiculous number. But they sat around for hours and hours just like not doing shit about what was going on. But yet when you know, look at the Tamir Rice situation, which went on in Ohio, where the cop rolls up and there was a 12-year-old black kid in a park with a BB gun. The cop pulls up, within several seconds, he shoots the kid down and kills him. You know what I'm saying? There's a clear disconnect here. When there's an actual person with knows how to use a weapon and actually has a tactical advantage, the cops are like, oh, well, we don't know what to do. We're going to wait around 3 hours and maybe detonate a bomb on the side of the wall, and you know, like. And then look at Dallas. Look what happened in Dallas with the Dallas shooter that shot the cops. They attached a bomb to a robot and drove it into the parking lot and blew the guy up. The cops weren't willing to risk their lives and go in there, guns blazing, and take down this guy that had shot their fellow officers. You know, they had to send a robot in to do the dirty work. I mean, but, you know, yet they gun down 1,000 people a year on average in the streets like it's nothing, and they get away with it. But when something actually pops off, these guys are not trained, they're not prepared, they don't even know what to do when someone actually knows how to use a weapon and knows the military tactics. I mean, the guy in Dallas, if you look at some of those videos, this guy knew what he was doing. I mean, he used several military tactics against these cops, and they were basically helpless. They were just sitting ducks. You know, and so these cops, and that's one of the points that Kaepernick made in one of the follow-up interviews that I saw just yesterday. He was talking about, you know, and he made a great point about how cops are less trained than cosmetologists in the United States. I mean, cops are only trained for 6 months out of the year. We've talked about this plenty of times here on the Anti-Media. Cops are only trained for 6 months. And, you know, to be a cosmetologist, which is someone who cuts hair, I mean, you got to go through like a year and a half, 2 years of training. You know what I'm saying? To be a lawyer, you got to be 8 years in training. A doctor, 10. You know what I'm saying? For a cop, someone who could pretty much go around with impunity and kill people, 6 months is good enough. And you know, if you got a high IQ, we don't want you. It's crazy. It's insane. It's ridiculous. I want to go back to Ryan, man, because you've always got some great insight. I mean, the memes you make are some of the best anti-establishment memes on the internet. There's another one today on your page, America Today. I'm glad you recovered it. Or did you recover it? Or did you have to make a new page? Because I know Facebook had deleted your page.
Yeah. Well, that one's been deleted a couple times now. So, that's a new page there. So, and John's been actually doing a lot of work on that, and it's been coming out. I mean, I'm amazed that the fan base seems to be really following, so that's a good thing.
Really good engagement, really good content on this page. Anyone wanting to go follow it, it's Murica Today. It's spelled out Murica Today. And it's just a really satirical kind of take on current events, political events, very anti-establishment leaning. Ryan, I wanted to get your input because I guess your most viral meme of, I don't know, today for sure, but probably the last couple weeks, is talking about how other controversies that go on, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, whether it's corruption, you have a meme here, it's a six-tile meme, how the Pentagon lost track of $6.5 trillion. Americans really don't give a shit. We found out that the Saudi Arabians were basically behind 9/11. Americans really don't give a shit about that. And now Kaepernick doesn't stand up for the national anthem, and everybody is like up in arms, ready to light shit on fire because of it. I mean, what is your take on this phenomenon? Why do people give a shit about meaningless, cultural, polarizing bullshit, and they don't give a shit about like massive, huge levels of corruption that could potentially undermine the entire foundation of the government? But it's just like, whatever. I mean, what do you make of it?
Man, you know, I think there's a lot to do with it, but it seems to me like the alt-right movement it's the most inflammatory group of people out there, and they're probably the most emotionally insecure too. So they're the most easy to trigger. And when things like this Kaepernick deal take off, I mean, they're the first ones out there screaming for the guy's head. You know, have him deported. Maybe he needs to leave. If he doesn't like our country, then he can go to hell and all this stuff. I think that they're a lot less educated. I mean, you hear trillions of dollars every day. Trillions of dollars this, trillions of dollars that, and they just they get used to it. It becomes nothing to them, I think. But when they something happens that triggers their emotions as far as their nationalistic views, it really sets them off.
Great point, man. I think you're right. I got a video I'm going to pull up here that kind of goes into the brainwashing involved because, you know, every time you're at a sporting event, every time you're at a big public event, every time you're at, back in school, you're doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, this is brainwashing. This is conditioning to make you kind of unquestioning with the, U.S., the American dream, but to a little bit of a lesser extent, the U.S. government. And there's a lot of conditioning that goes into getting Americans to kind of just accept the state of things and just not really question the government and let the government run wild. I got this interesting video. It's from The Whitest Kids You Know, and it's called The Pledge of Allegiance. I encourage everybody to check this out because it's really kind of chilling, and I'm going to talk about a personal story that I experienced back when I was in middle school after we play this video. But first, let me play this.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you very, very much for letting us little kids live here. It really, really was nice of you. You didn't have to do it. And it's really not creepy to have little kids mindlessly recite this anthem every day and pledge their life to a government before they're old enough to really think about what they're saying. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is really the greatest country in the whole world. All the other countries suck. And if this country ever goes to war, as it's often wants to do, I promise to help go and kill all the other country's kids. God bless Johnson and Johnson. God bless GE. God bless Citigroup. Amen.
Very good, kids. Now come and get your Ritalin.
That last line is just hilarious. But dude, I was just, I was looking back, and of course the origins of the Pledge of Allegiance, very controversial. Apparently it was originally created by this socialist guy, which a lot of people don't know. And, when the kids do the Pledge of Allegiance in school nowadays, you have to put your hand over your heart. But back in the day, before World War II, they did the same salute that the Nazis do. Did you guys ever see those old pictures? the kids in the U.S. used to make that same salute, and it was kind of a requirement at school. But they changed it after the Nazis kind of co-opted that kind of salute. That salute is actually a military salute it dates back a long time. But they changed it after World War II because there was a lot of anti-German propaganda that really demonized that salute and made it associated with the Nazis and stuff like that. But I was thinking about this, man, and the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem, these are things that you do in all public places, in your schools, at your sporting events, concerts, the World Series, the Super Bowl, all the shit that people watch. And it really is hardcore propaganda, hardcore conditioning, hardcore nationalism, and really getting you to just unquestionably think that the United States is the single most greatest, freest, most prosperous, just democracy-loving country in the world. And that kind of sentiment, it's showing itself right now with this whole Colin Kaepernick thing. Because looking at the statistics, I mean, there's been so many different studies recently that shows the United States is no longer the freest country in the world. It may have been at one point, I don't know for sure. But, the United States is not even in the top 10 anymore. We're not in the top 10 with economic freedom. We're not in the top 10 with social freedoms. We're not in the top 10 with equality. We're not in the top 10 of race issues. I mean, there's a bunch of things we're not doing good at. In fact, one of the things that we really are number one in is incarceration. We're incarcerating more people than any other modernized country in the world. I mean, per capita and by number. I mean, we're incarcerating more people in the United States than China is incarcerating, and China has like 5 times more people than we do. I mean, we're incarcerating more people in the United States than the Soviet Union ever had in jail. I mean, it's bad. I mean, we're not the freest country anymore, guys. But this kind of conditioning really, it really etches that rhetoric into your brain, and it really is the most advanced form of rhetoric in the United States, because these kids are forced to repeat this shit, to regurgitate this shit every single day in school. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's I don't know if other countries do that, but I'm pretty sure North Korea probably does it. But it's really ridiculous looking back at it and thinking back as a kid. I remember in middle school when the first time when one of my peers, I never noticed, but apparently she did it every day. But one day she didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we had a substitute teacher that day. And this guy was like a Marine veteran or something. He was like this dude that served in the military, and he'd become a teacher. And there was this girl in my class, and she refused to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And the teacher, like, absolutely lost his shit, like, to the point, and, like, he started saying, you have to do it, you have to do it, and the girl was, like, unrelenting. She's like, I'm not going to do it, I don't have to do the Pledge of Allegiance, it's within my rights. And, like, this is back in, like, 7th grade when nobody knew shit about their rights or anything like that, but obviously this girl had parents that taught her about this stuff, and she didn't yield to this guy. He ended up writing her a referral, sending her to the office. And she came back like 20 minutes later with a note from the principal saying, like, she doesn't have to do it. And the teacher just sat there at his desk the whole time fuming. It was ridiculous. But people take this really seriously. And this teacher that I had really kind of reminds me of all these people that are kind of triggered by what Colin Kaepernick is doing. But really what this is just the result of a lifetime worth of nationalistic propaganda that tells you that the United States is the best country in the world. Don't question what the United States does, even if we've become an empire, even if we've committed war crimes, even if we've killed 1,000 innocent people, or sorry, not 1,000, 1,000,000 innocent people in Iraq since 9/11. I mean, we're not supposed to question any of that. We're not supposed to question the fact that our police are one of the most are the single most violent in the developed world, and one of the most violent in the whole world. We're not supposed to question any of that because our propaganda and our rhetoric and our conditioning tells us not to. And so, Kaepernick really has opened up a vein here and really exposed a deep problem in the cultural issues in the United States, where we're really just propagandized throughout our whole lives to be unquestioning about what the government does or what the empire does or what they do in our name or what we pay for with our taxes. And that to me is the real issue that needs to be talked about. But The problem is, and this is one of the things that Snowden was really concerned about when he went public with his leaks with Glenn Greenwald, was he was concerned they were going to make this into a personality issue and that they were going to focus in on Snowden's personal life and his personal beliefs and the way he did his things and did that and did this. That's exactly what the media is doing now with Colin Kaepernick. So instead of looking at this issue deeper and looking at the propaganda, looking at these traditions of doing the Pledge of Allegiance, doing the national anthem, and asking whether or not these are flawed ideas or whether we should continue doing them, it's like, oh, well, is Colin Kaepernick, what does he know about oppression? What does he know about Black Lives Matter? Is he oppressed or is he not oppressed? Is he rich? Is he not rich? I've even seen speculation saying that, oh, well, is this guy a closet Muslim? And so they've really trying to personalize this thing instead of looking at the issue that, and even at the more surface level, just looking at directly at what he's protesting against, which is police brutality, not even looking at the police brutality issue and just immediately assuming that this guy has no idea what he's talking about. I mean, it's so ridiculous, man. This conversation has just become so retarded. I hate to say it that way. I don't like using that, but it really has. Thankfully, we're able to kind of hijack this narrative, and obviously, Ryan, with your memes, and us here at the Anti-Media with some of our counter narratives here with the stories that we're covering, we're able to kind of interject and hijack the conversation a little bit. But let's face it, the masses here are kind of lost, dude. These people are going to be arguing over this guy for the next coming couple weeks, and there's nothing substantive going to come out of it, and it's going to be like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. And 2 weeks from now, the issue's dead. No one's going to be talking about it no more, and nothing is going to come of it. And that's been the nature of the news cycle for a long time. I mean, they focus in on polarizing issues. There's a bunch of superficial conversations, and then at the end, nothing changes, blah, 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 and it's back to normal. So that being said, the top story of our weekend, Ryan, did you have something to add to this?
I was just thinking, it's like you had mentioned earlier, the Clinton Foundation had come under a little bit of scrutiny not that long ago, right before this whole Kaepernick issue picked up, as well as the Native Americans. It just seems to me like this kind of topic, this kind of conversation has to be had now with guys our age and our generation, because we kind of remember what the world was like pre 9/11. And what's coming up now, I mean, we've got these post 9/11 kids that this is all they know. All they know is this incredible police state that we've watched form since the September 11th attacks. It's like they don't know any better. And if we're going to make a stand, we got to do it with guys our age and people who can remember what it was like in the past. So I don't know. I'm not that big a fan of Kaepernick just because I don't think he plays ball very well. But what he's doing here and the way he's got the narrative spun right now, I give him props for that.
He's made a new fan out of me, man. I liked using him on Madden a couple of years ago when he was really good and he was fast and you could QB sneaks and shit. But yeah, his gameplay has fallen off a bit in the real life, but. I'm a new fan in real life now because of his stand and just the fact that people are getting so offended by this guy. I mean, he's made some great points in his statements, man. I mean, he's standing up for the issue of police brutality and also for the issue of racial justice. I mean, people like to put their heads in the sand and say, oh, racial issues are gone. I mean, we elected our first black president. Why are people even talking about race anymore? I know there's plenty of people out there that think that way, and plenty of people that in the quote alt-right movement think that any talk of racial justice is just pandering or is just not legitimate. But the fact of the matter is that there's plenty of racism and even worse than just personal or individual racism, is institutionalized racism going on in the United States, whereas institutions, including policing and incarceration, target minority groups in a huge way compared to everybody else, and it's just it's a wrong that needs to be righted. And I applaud Kaepernick for speaking out about that. I don't know, how well informed he is and stuff, but he's raising attention to it. But thanks to the media coverage, it's not really going to accomplish much because the media coverage is just going to polarize the situation. And as we've covered on the Anti-Media relentlessly, I mean, the United States is in the most polarized form that it's probably ever been. And I attribute a lot of it to the media coverage and stuff, and a bunch of misinformed people spouting off crap on social media definitely helps, or not helps, but just hurts the scenario even worse. But on that point, we have a story, our top story of the weekend, and even in going into today, written by our radio host that hosts on Tuesdays and Thursdays, SM Gibson. 6 stories more infuriating. Can't even say this. 6 stories more infuriating than a football player not standing up during a song. I love the title. And this is one that I reposted today. The first story here of the 6. 76-year-old veteran kills himself in VA parking lot after being denied medical treatment. So this happened on Sunday, last Sunday, not the past Sunday, but the Sunday before that. A 76-year-old military veteran went to the Veterans Hospital in Long Island, and he went and he complained that he was having mental issues, and he was looking for help, and they turned him away. 76-year-old guy. I mean, this guy probably, we don't know all the details, but, 76, he probably fought in either Korea or Vietnam. I mean, this guy probably went out and literally put his life on the line for the government. And he went to go try to get mental health help at the VA hospital, and they turned him away. He went out to the parking lot, pulled out his gun, and killed himself, shot himself in the head. And you know what? We posted the story. One of our journalists wrote an amazing article on it, and it got a couple people reading it, but nobody really cared, man. Nobody really cared. And this is just it just goes to show, like, people give a shit about the wrong stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, the media tells people what to feel, what to care about, and like this goes back to the whole thing when the terrorist attack happened in Paris, and everybody's changing their profile picture to a Paris filter and this, that, and the other. When just days before that, there was an even bigger terrorist attack in Beirut or in one of these Muslim majority countries. Nobody gave a shit. So the media literally is dictating emotion in the United States. People aren't thinking or feeling for themselves even at this point. People are just feeling and thinking about what the media decides to tell them to feel about. The media didn't want to talk about this 76-year-old veteran because then if they did, they would have to talk about all the problems with the VA and how we are screwing over our veterans and how hundreds of military veterans are committing suicide. Thousands of them, 22 on average a day, are committing suicide in the United States. No media coverage at all. Colin Kaepernick doesn't stand up, and it's like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. We got to cover this. It's crazy. We talked about the Pentagon earlier from that meme where they lost track of over $6 trillion. The other thing the Pentagon did that we found out last week is that they shipped 1.4 million guns to Iraq and Afghanistan, and they don't even know where the hell basically most of those guns went. They're shipping weapons into the Middle East, and they don't know where they went. I'll tell you where a lot of them probably went. They're probably being used right now by ISIS, are the people that were supposedly over there now fighting. They're shooting back at us with our own weapons. That's going on right now, and nobody gives a shit. The EpiPen scandal, that was the media had a field day with that, but it was a bunch of superficial coverage. That's also mentioned here in the article. But, we took a much deeper look at why the company, which is called Mylan Pharmaceuticals, is able to jack the price up astronomically. And sure enough, it goes back to corporate government corruption, and how the CEO of Mylan Pharmaceuticals is a former lobbyist. She's the daughter of a U.S. senator. She lobbied the government to get these EpiPens into all the school systems. And once 47 states were required to put these things in their schools, they jacked up the price. And not only that, but thanks to the FDA, the Mylan Pharmaceuticals has a pseudo-monopoly over this product. So, again, more corruption. All the media coverage was very superficial. Our story really looked into it and got to the root of the problem. You can check that out. The EpiPen scandal is worse than you think. That's one of our best stories from last week for sure. It went really viral. It got aggregated by Zero Hedge, and it was on the front page of Google search. If you search for the EpiPen for like 3 days, so I'm sure a lot of people got to see that story. One of our original stories from last week, 18 government agents used terrorism as an excuse to terrorize a 9-year-old with a pacemaker. This goes back to the whole controversy going on with the TSA and how they basically, you know, because we're the land of the free, you get molested every time you go try to travel somewhere. This little boy, and this is a really sad story, and we interviewed his mom. This little boy tried to go fly somewhere, and the airport really harassed the shit out of him. 18 agents showed up to really make sure he wasn't a terrorist. The kid, his mom was in tears. Even bystanders that were at the airport were like crying because they were so sad about the situation this kid was facing. And they were saying, oh, you know, we don't know, you know, that sometimes terrorists hide, you know, they hide bombs inside little kids and disguise them as pacemakers. Even though, you know, the TSA has never really stopped a terrorist attack. But, you know, these agents took it upon themselves to really screw this little kid over and, you know, traumatize him. Who knows how long he's going to be traumatized by this. It's really sad. And, of course, my story that I've been talking about, why there's a media blackout on the Native American oil pipeline. I want to talk about this a little bit, and I want to get DB's input, too, because you're a little bit closer to that area, and you had a lot of good insight on Wednesday on our last show about really the ramifications of this pipeline, because a lot of people are talking now a lot of people are talking about the protests and stuff, but a lot of people aren't talking really about the ramifications. So first, I want to talk about why the media isn't covering, the mainstream media isn't covering this protest. And as of right now, I still haven't seen a single piece of news on CNN about this. So I mean, there's literally a mainstream media blackout. Some local affiliates are covering it. I think I saw a Facebook video by ABC News about it, you know, and so now it's starting to trickle into the mainstream. I saw it on Huffington Post, but I mean, there's still literally not a single story about this on CNN. But I made the case here. First of all, we talked about this throughout most of the show. One of the reasons why the story isn't making headlines is because it's just not divisive enough. I mean, everybody can kind of agree that Native Americans have been screwed out of all their lands, out of, you know, they've been oppressed, they've been kind of rejected and sent into the reservations and kind of forgotten about. Everybody can kind of agree that Native Americans have gotten the short end of the stick throughout the entire American experience, right? Everybody's in agreement. I don't care if you're liberal, I don't care if you're conservative, Republican, Democrat, a social justice warrior, a cultural justice warrior. Any of these guys can pretty much agree on that. So, I mean, that's one reason why I think that this is being, why there's a blackout on this, is because it's not Kaepernick. It's not, hey, you guys against these guys fight, you know, round one fight. It's like, no, everybody agrees on this, so we can't, you know, the mainstream media is like, it's not really story-worthy because we can't use it to divide and conquer the country. The second thing, and this is where it gets a little more corrupt, a lot of the media outlets in the United States, especially the mainstream media, they're so deeply in bed with the oil interests that it's like ridiculous. MSNBC writes articles like it's what's called in the publishing world. They're what's called native advertisements. It's where you have an actual article written by one of your journalists or quote unquote journalists at MSNBC that's actually funded by somebody from a certain company, and they're actually trying to promote that company. And some outlets will actually disclose it on the article at the bottom, and it'll say this article was funded by ExxonMobil, or this article was funded by, you know, Goldman Sachs. I mean, you'll see that on certain articles. On BuzzFeed, they don't even disclose it. They don't even tell you that it's funded by some corporation. They just pretend it's an actual news story. MSNBC, which is, you know, the liberal standard bearer in the mainstream media. I mean, they're so liberal that you'd think they're against big oil and against Wall Street and all that shit. The opposite is actually the truth. MSNBC is writing native advertisement articles for the fracking industry. And so the other thing is that there's people that literally work for Fox News and the Wall Street Journal, which is like the standard bearer of the right-wing media, that are actually consultants or actually on the payroll of big oil. And so, the other reason why this pipeline is being blacked out by the media, this protest, is because the media industry is going to lose money if they're successful in blocking the pipeline. So of course the media is not going to cover it, because then the protesters are going to get more support. People are going to keep showing up and try to block this pipeline. Pipeline's not going to get built. The media company is going to lose money because their advertisers are going to not have as much of a marketing budget to spend. You know what I'm saying? And with the case of Fox News, Wall Street Journal, and the other people that are fall under the News Corp umbrella, which is a lot, New York Daily News, a bunch of them, they actually work for big oil. So of course they're not going to cover it, because why would they popularize the fact that Native Americans are about to block a oil pipeline from being built when they're going to actually directly lose money from it? And so that's the other side of the issue. For one, it's not polarizing. For two, it's not in the media's financial interest to talk about the Native American pipeline. So, there we go. Sorry, not the Native American pipeline, the Native American pipeline protest. And then we got a story about WhatsApp, which is a very popular messaging service around the world. It's not so big in the United States, but it's real big in South America, Latin America, Europe, all around the world. In fact, a very prominent Brazilian tech website cited us today on it, because one of our new journalists, many people know of her, Josie Wales. She's huge in the liberty movement, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of her hugely viral videos and stuff. She wrote a great article about how there's a bunch of misinformation about how people could supposedly opt out of the WhatsApp sharing their information with Facebook. That's not actually the case. You can tell WhatsApp to not let Facebook use your information for their targeted ad service, but according to the fine print, Facebook is going to receive the information regardless whether you opt in or opt out. If you opt out, they can't use it for their ad targeting service. They can use it for any other purpose. That's going on as well. So bunch of stories that we covered. And so this is part of our initiative to hijack narratives or counter narratives. So that's why we're taking this topic of Kaepernick, which has turned into a very frivolous, superficial argument, even though it shouldn't be, but that's definitely what it's turned into. And that's what every media frenzy turns into, is a very frivolous argument, and kind of use that to draw attention to other issues. And, luckily this one worked. And, a lot of people got to look and find out about some really hard-hitting corruption that's going on that, we really need to be talking about. So I'm going to open it up here. We only got like 2 more minutes. Going back to DB first, what's up, dude? What do you want to talk about?
I was just going to say, going back to the Sacred Stone protests in North Dakota, I believe, that is an extremely important aquifer. It would be equivalent to California having a drought that would never end. In other words, the aquifer becomes poisoned if there's an oil spill and you can't clean it up because it's subterranean. And it provides all the fresh water for the wells that make the food in Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, all the major grain, corn producing regions, but also just a ton of produce and beef and pork and you name it. Everything. Just the farm states get screwed out of their water supply if there's a spill. And statistically speaking, there will be. There's going to be a spill.
It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. Eventually these pipelines fail. There's a spill, and we see them all the time. There was just an oil spill that I saw that went into, I think it was into Yellowstone River. Yellowstone, it's like one of the most pristine wildlife areas in the United States. Now we're leaking oil into the river. And that's a great point. That's one of the things that's not being talked about enough, is why these people are actually out there protesting and trying to shut down this pipeline. It's not just water for their little tribe that is in that direct area. This could potentially affect a huge, broad group of people, including non-Native Americans, a bunch of farmers, everybody's food.
and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.